Hi, this is Howie from Prime Your Pump, entertaining and actionable self-improvement. And this week's video is about when and when not to stick out. And so I'd like to tell you a story where sticking out didn't really work so well for me. But before I get to that story, I just want you to know that in Japan there's a saying, the nail that sticks out of the board gets hammered down. And that's like the negative side. So I'm going to tell you a negative story at first. But before I do that, you need to know, as a preamble to the story, that I was born Jewish. And when I was probably about, 5 years old, it was the high holidays, and I was in the shul, standing there. I really couldn't say I was praying. And I was had all these older men standing around me. So I was like 4 feet tall, and they were like, 5.5 feet tall. And I remembered in this well, I farted, and it was a really, really stinky fart. And I had all these men looking down at me like, how dare you, you little wart, you know what I mean? And it was very, 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 very frustrating and upsetting. And I kind of said to myself, I'm not sure I could believe in this religion, if this religion will allow that to happen. So carrying that further, now I'm 10 years old, all right? And all my Christian friends have Christmas trees, and I think they're really cool, okay? Much, much better than like the Hanukkah candles. So my next door neighbor, who happened to be a very, very religious Jew, had these great shrubs all around his house. And they were about 4 feet tall, and they looked like Christmas trees to me. So I went and I got my axe, and I chopped down one of his trees, and I put it on a base, and I took all my, the colored papers, and where you cut them into rings and you can make chains, or paper chains. And I put paper chains all around the Christmas tree, and I was so proud of it, okay? And about 10 minutes later, my grandfather walked into the house, took one look at the Christmas tree, opened the window, and threw it out the window, and looked at me and said, "You're Jewish," which is being the nail that sticks up. So there I learned about, maybe sometimes it's not so good to stick out. But let me give you an example of a story where it was good to stick out. And when I was in college, I really wasn't all that great a student, but in the end, I got to be a much better student. And one of my professors at the end of the semester in my senior year said to me, "Howie, you have to learn this computer language." And I said, "Professor, that's not fair. Nobody else has to learn it." And he said, "Well, that's just too damn bad, okay? Don't learn it and you're not graduating." So what was I going to do? I learned it. I hated him for it. Oh, God, did I hate him for it, okay? For making me learn it. But when I went to graduate school, I was the only person at NYU who knew this computer language. So even the professors had to come to me, okay, if they wanted to use that computer language, which was a simulation language. So all of a sudden that gave me enormous self-esteem. So here's an example about how sticking out, in fact, made me very, very special. And it was a very positive experience. In terms of use it or lose it, to make it actionable, before you take an action to stick out, just think about whether it's worth the price. Is the juice worth the squeeze, all right? Is sticking out worth it or not worth it? Just think about it. And when you use it, well, just like I said, before you take an action that could be risky, because it's different or non-conventional, think about the consequences of it. And what do you think? If you have any personal examples of when you stuck out and it worked, or you stuck out and it didn't work, please add them in the space below. And before we go, make sure you read our other blog posts. And if you have a friend who may like our posts, please share them. And lastly, if you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, please remember to do so. And until next time, remember, prime your pump.